Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين ونستغفر والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقال على تعالى في القرآن: وللمطلقات متاع بالمعروف حقا على المتقين. We praise Allah and we seek Allah aid and assistance and we seek Allah forgiveness. And peace and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and upon his companions and upon all of us who follow them until the day of judgment. And Allah says in the Quran that for the divorced woman, there is a provision. Bil ma'ruf, according to what is customarily known as provisions, or that which is good, and that it is a right on those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah says in the Quran that when you divorce a woman, you are supposed to provide provisions for her. Now the lecture today is not about divorce per se, but we are talking about the word ma'ruf or urf, which is used for culture. And Allah starts here and says that when you divorce this woman, give her provisions. But what is provisions? You know, what exactly is provisions? So he said bil ma'ruf, which means that what is good and what is customarily known as provisions in your land amongst your people. Okay, so we have, for example, let me say the Asian culture. Okay, they might provide rice, potato, ghee. You know, in Trinidad, it might be flour, rice, oil. You know, and different societies, what is customary, okay, will differ from place to place. So Allah did not stipulate exactly what type of provisions. He left it open to be decided by a culture. So I only use that first, okay, to show you that culture has a place in Islam. Okay, culture has a place in Islam because many times in the Quran, Allah refers to it. Many times. Now, this lecture, inshallah, will serve as an introduction because this is a big topic. You know, I want to do the topic justice and I don't want to hurry it. So this is just an introduction and then we'll have part 1 and part 2 some other time. According to what the Wazir said that he might have available, or what slot he might have available for me to continue. You know, but I have all the notes and I have all the preparation to do, and that is why I decided, look, this thing has to be the introduction. Now, when we say culture, what do we mean by culture? According to the English dictionary, It is the customs of a people, the roles of a people. You know, we have leadership in society, we have family structure, we have cousins, we have um, police role, we have soldier role, we have politician roles, you know, rituals, you know, courtesies, you know, tell somebody good morning, okay, good afternoon, salam alaikum, wa alaikum salam, you know, communication, how you communicate with people, you know, like us as a people, like say for example, the Caribbean, we communicate verbally, and sometimes we communicate by expressions, okay? And long time, I don't know what it's called now, but long time we say you give a man a zeppo, you know, you give him a, you know, you give him a nod of the head or a wink of the eye or some kind of, you know, something bad, you do, you know, you twist your mouth, you know, or something smelling, you know, you push your upper lip to your nose. No, so we have these things, we have zeppos, okay? I don't know what they are called now. I don't know what the youths call it now. Okay, then we have language. You know, language is part of culture, how we express ourselves. Okay, and the words we use. Okay, and our language is standard English and what we call colloquial English, which is a mixture of European languages, sometimes African language, sometimes Amerindian. Okay, because for example, the word chuk, okay, is a Fulani word, which means to stick somebody. You know, and we just say, oh, mommy, I got chook in my eyes, right? That is not an English word, but we use it. Okay, and then, you know, we have Asian words, you know, like we say the political pundits, you know, meaning people who are heavily involved in politics. Okay, and sometimes we say, come boy, we have a panchayat, which means have a communal discussion. You know, so there are many other words that, you know, that we use are from different people and different culture. You know, we say we, meaning yes, O-U-I, that's French for yes. And I would say, well, what going there, boy? We boy. You know, we turn it away now, but well, ooh boy, yes boy. You know, so, and I'm just showing you how we have developed all of these different things by our interaction with the Europeans, our interaction with the Amerindians, the original people of these islands, and our interaction with ourselves as African people who were enslaved, and our interaction with the Chinese, and our interactions with the the Asians, the Indians from India, you know, we call a certain small kite chikichong. You know, I'm not sure if that is Chinese or Mandarin or what it is. I'm not sure. Okay, so all of these things, how we interact with our thoughts, how we think. Okay, how we think. Okay, and if you look at the Caribbean, although we are similar people, we don't think in the same way. You know, like Jamaicans, like there's a brother called Brother Kib, but he died right now. He died, may Allah have mercy on him. And he always used to say that the difference between the Caribbean people can be understood if you look at, you take a Bajan, a Jamaican, and a Trinidadian, and they approach a door, and the door is locked, right? But none of them knows if the door is locked, right? The Bajan will say, me ain't sure if that door could open or. Then you have the Jamaican go come and put a bomb by the door to blow it up, to pelt two big stones to open the door. And Trinidadian go and try the lock. He always used to say that just to show, I mean, Jamaicans and the Bajan might think like I'm saying that, but this is what he used to say, you know, to show the temperament of, you know, these different people. Although we have similar culture coming from Africa, interaction with the in East India, interaction with Chinese, Jamaica full of Chinese, interaction with Amerindians, you know, but we have developed different temperaments. Okay. And then we have values. Okay, what do we value? Okay, for example, generally in the Caribbean, cousins don't marry cousins. Okay. But among the East Indian cousins, still marry cousins. Among the Arabs, cousins still marry cousins. You know, so that is a value. Another value is in our culture, throughout the Caribbean and Trinidad, a man may marry a woman with plenty children. Some cultures don't do that. Okay, some cultures just don't do that. You know, so we have values, either negative or positive, and we have expected behaviors. You know how people are expected to behave. Okay, how people are expected to behave. We have practices and relationships. So all of this encompass what is understood as culture. Now, when we say what is the relevance of all these things that is under the definition of culture, how does that relate to Islam? Now, Islam means submission to the will of Allah. So Islam immediately is outside of your culture. Okay, Islam is outside of your culture, and Islam calls people of all types of culture. We have Eskimos, we have Africans, we have Asians, we have Europeans. Even among the Europeans, you have differences. You have Germans, you have Englishmen, you have British men, you have French, you know, and you could just name it. In Africa, you have all these different tribes, you know, and the whole world is just, we have all types of people, all types of attitude, all types of behavior, all types of languages. And Islam came to guide all these people under one gathering, and we call that gathering the Ummah, the nation. So Islam itself is also a nation amongst all the other nations. And the Islamic nation consists of all these different people under one flag. Now, how we move in Islam, we have the Quran, which is our main guidance. Okay, it is the foremost guidance that nothing can contradict. Then we have the secondary source is the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, and this Sunnah is not divine. Okay, and we have to be rigorous to ascertain what is a correct report and what is a false report. Okay, so our scholars had set themselves the task of defining the different type of reports that came from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. For example, there are reports, what is called ahad, that is reported by one person. Then there are reports that are reported by a number of people, 7, 8, 5, 6, 10, sometimes more, 20 people, right? And we have, among those, we have those that are solid, they are sahih, they correct, because we can trace the line that goes back to the statement, and some that are Hasan. They are good, but there's some little doors, but it can be used. And there are some that is rejected, there are some that is fabricated, and there are some that is weak. Okay, so the Muslims are about to determine what is the Sunnah of the Prophet by way of narration of hadith of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What was said by him, what was done by him, and also what was approved by him in his presence. Okay? So in Islam, the Quran did not directly address certain issues. Okay, and we have to use like secondary sources in order to get to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Like here, Allah said bil maruf. Okay, well, what is good? What is good? How do we find what is good? Okay, how do we define what is good? For example, the Prophet ﷺ said that a person who does not have dates in his house is hungry. Okay? A person that does not have dates in his home is hungry. That is a cultural thing. That has to do with culture. Because the Arabs, the date was a staple. Sometimes they just live off of dates and milk. Sometimes they crush the dates with some barley and milk. Okay? So let us say if we approach culture in the wrong way, right? I could see a Muslim lacking understanding would tell his wife, well, we're hungry, because I just buy a box of dates, that, make that do. And when she said, but how feed everybody, then you go say, so what happened? Are you going against what the Prophet Muhammad said? Because he said, if you don't have dates in your house, you're hungry. And so we're hungry, so why did you guys not? You don't understand Islam, blah, 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 and we have problems. If we do not understand properly, okay, when something is cultural and when something has to do with the Sharia. Now, within the Islamic structure, okay, we have Quran, we have Sunnah, and then we have Ijma, which is there are certain things that the community of the Muslims agreed on, have a consensus on. For example, in the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam time, there was no copy of the Quran. Okay? The Quran was written on different materials, and it was mostly oral. Okay? It was written in all different types of materials, and people memorize it, and people remember it orally. It was a heavily oral tradition. And then under the caliphate of Abu Bakr and Uthman, they decide to collect the Quran. No, especially in the caliphate of Abu Bakr, they collected all the stuff and that the Quran was written on in one place and given to Hafsa, right? And then in the caliphate of Uthman, they decide to write down from all different places and from oral retention and memory to have it like in a book form. Okay? So that was not done in the time of the Prophet. And at that time, a lot of the companions, some disagreed that should be done, because they said it was not done in the Prophet time. And some said no, it is towards the preservation of the integrity of the revelation. So we have these issues, and it is ijma of the companions that just what we have in our hands is what was revealed to Muhammad Sallallahu, because I wasn't there, you wasn't there, none of us was there. Okay, so those people who say they don't believe in hadith, or they don't accept hadith, and they only taken from the Quran, they're in a lot of problems because the people who narrate the hadiths are also the same people that narrate the Quran. So you're saying that they got it wrong on the hadiths, but they got it right on the Quran. You know, how do you weigh that? And on top of that, you know, how do you weigh certain issues? Like, for example, Allah says, you know, in the Quran, do not touch, you know, a woman when she is in her menses, when she's in her periods, do not touch. Okay, what do you mean by do not touch? And the Jews had that problem because when a woman is menstruating among the Jews, even the chair that she sits on is contaminated. So they used to put them out of the house in a makeshift structure, okay, which was considered the menstruation house, for they to see their periods that time, because everything they touch, okay, was considered quote unquote impure. So should we interpret it as the Jews? Okay. Now we can see understanding with when they say it becomes impure, because in those days the sanitary pads were not like in our times. Okay, most time it was cloth or cotton, and sometimes, you know, that could be full and leak, and it might leak on the chair, it might leak on the floor, and then you come and you sit down on the chair, you sit down on the floor, and you contaminate yourself, not knowing that it is menses and that you should wash it off. Okay, and at one time, among the Jews, if urine fell on their clothes, they said cut it off. Under the Sharia of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, we just use water and sprinkle it and you know, take it off. Okay, so they are in a lot of problems when there are certain issues in the Quran that they have to do. You know, so what do they mean by touch? They'll have to explain that to us, and how they arrive at what it means. Okay, so we have the ijma, or the agreement of the Sahabas. Then we have the agreement of their students and those who came after their students. And then we have the agreement of the scholars. You know, there are certain issues in Islamic educational paradigm with which everybody agree with. Okay, it's called the ijma. So amongst that secondary sources, we have urf. Urf is customs, culture. Okay, it is a practice that happens over and over, which people are accustomed to. That's what we call culture. Okay, so there's a legalistic culture that we can derive and becomes law in our society. For example, traffic light. Okay, payment of road taxes, fines, and these things. Those are not from the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, but by these taxes and fines, they maintain the roads. Okay, the establishment of a police force, the establishment of a standing army. Okay, so we have all these different things that has become quote unquote part of the Sharia, but they were not legislated from the Quran. Now that is one aspect of customs, but that is not what I intend to deal with today. What I intend to deal with today is what we call our culture and our customs as people. Because you hear a lot of people when they come into Islam, they will tell you that Islam is against culture. And I've always had this problem with a lot of people on this issue. Okay? Islam filters culture. Okay? just like any aspect of life, we have economics. There are Islamic principles that we apply to economics. Okay? People were trading and buying and selling long time. And then some wise person start to think about interest. If I lend you $5, I want 10, as if the money grow over time. And that is haram. Okay? So we have Islamic principles applied to economics. Islamic principles apply to politics. Every facet of life, there is an Islamic filter, okay, for that process. And it's the same with culture. Not everything you did as a non-Muslim is quote unquote haram. Unless that thing violates the Quran and the Sunnah and the practices of the Muslims. Okay? Or if that thing is concerned and becomes a religious obligation. Okay? Then we have to apply the Islamic principles to that thing. Right? So it's not just a total ban, okay, on being, for example, being a Trinidadian. Okay? The drunk and disorderly aspect of being a Trinidadian, of course, we can't do it as a Muslim because that is haram. You know, the licentious and the, you know, the nakedness and all these things, that is okay in our society. We pass it through the Islamic process and we say, okay, we're not supposed to do that. But outside of that, you can enjoy it. You don't have to dress like an Arab for your culture to be Islamic. But what has happened is that because the Prophet ﷺ was an Arab, and a lot of the Sahabas were Arabs, we tend to imitate them. Well and good. Nothing is wrong with that. Okay? Just as we imitate the European society, we wear ties and jacket and, you know, we put on these type of dresses, evening gowns, and, you know, our clothes is a reflection of the dominant culture. The dominant culture in our society is European culture. Okay? And you hear people saying that a man will come to you in a jacket and a tie or a tracksuit, you know, and a Nikes, and telling you, you know, but it's not culture in Islam. And if you look at it, how he dressed, he's dressed culturally as a modern day European. Okay? Because that is not his culture. But because they dominate the world follow their way. You know, women wear brassiere, you wear boxers, you wear shorts. You see? Now, those things are not bad. Okay? They are helpful towards the human being. But I only quoted to show you that people get it wrong. Okay? By thinking that for something to be quote unquote Islamic, it must resemble the Arab example. This is what I'm trying to get at. Okay, for example, with the coming of Islam, the imama or the turban became more popular. In the time of the Rasul Islam, they normally used to wear just a khimar. You know what we call what the shawl we wear is a khimar. Even it was called khimar both for men and women. The shawl, the head covering. Okay, and that is what they mostly used to wear. That's why if you look at some African countries, like for example Senegal and some other West African countries, who had that influence, early influence of Islam, most of their scholars You will hardly see them in a turban or even a taj, what we call a taj. You know, they hardly see them in that. They just have a shawl over their head. Okay, because the period they got Islam, that was popular. Like up in northern Nigeria, among the houses, the turban was popular. And the shawl. Okay. Now, because they got Islam, okay, more from North Africa. Okay, so we have to be very careful. Okay, when we make judgments. Okay, when we make judgments about issues, and we even go so far to say this is haram and that is haram. The scholars of the past always avoid calling things halal or haram, right? Because only Allah and His Rasul could designate an issue haram. Okay, for example, let's look at smoking. You know, a proper Islamic scholar will never tell you that it's haram. He will tell you that it's makruh. It is disliked. Why it is disliked? Because it is not healthy, number one. It's something that goes against your health. Okay, it goes against, the smell of your mouth is not a nice smell, and the angels like nice smell. Okay, so a smoker's breath is not really nice, so you don't attract positive forces. Okay, number three, it is a waste of money. Okay, so we will not consider that. And number four, that it is addictive. Okay, you can always be agitated. You can't function unless you have a cigarette in your mouth. Or when you get angry or frustrated, you smoke to cool you down. When you're upset, you smoke. When you're happy, you take a smoke. So all these things becomes part of you, of your culture, but it is detrimental to you. Okay, and there are certain things in our culture that is totally detrimental to us. Okay, so what are my proofs? Example, in the time of the Prophet Islam, they used to practice something called azl, which means that it is, the technical name for it is coitus interruptus, which means that in order not to impregnate the woman, the man will withdraw his private part from the woman during the sexual act, so avoid spilling sperms into the womb of the woman. Okay, that was a cultural practice of the Arabs that Islam approved of. And when I say approve of, Islam didn't say it was haram. Okay, Islam didn't say it was haram. Apparently, among the Jews, it was haram to spill your seed on the ground. Okay, so we see that certain cultural practices that don't mitigate against Islam, you can consider it as Islamic practice. You can consider it as Islamic, meaning that it is something that allowable for you to do. Okay, and this is very important, but there's no one block of something called Islamic culture, because it will vary from people to people. Okay, it will vary what? from people to people. For example, let's look at foods. The Prophet Islam never ate lizard, but some of the Arabs ate lizard. You know, we call it iguana. You know, but the type they used to eat is the desert iguana. You know, we have the tropical iguana in the forest and stuff. And when they offered him to eat, he didn't eat it. But he never stopped them from eating it. Okay, so that practice became allowed. Okay, that practice became allowed. So we have so many instances of these things. For example, the Prophet ﷺ giving good greetings and hope because of the practices of certain Sahabas. And they started to dance around him. And when he told them, they started to dance. Could you imagine nowadays, you hear a good speech and you get up in the hall and start to dance? People will say, well, little boy haram, this people haram. The haram police will lock you up. Right? But they did that. They danced. They said some of them was hopping on one foot. You know, they were jigging, doing the jig. You know, around the Rasul Islam, didn't stop them. Also, the Ethiopians, they used to practice martial arts, wrestling, you know, combat, and they used to do it in like a kind of dancing way, you know. And the Prophet Islam used to stand up and watch it with his wife Aisha. Okay, and they was chanting in their language, not in Arabic. And he didn't know the language properly. He knew some Ethiopian, but he didn't know all of it. And he asked what they were saying. You know, they were saying that Muhammad Islam is a good person, and among us we have this prophet. And you know, they're praising him basically in their language. In the mosque. Can you imagine that these days? Okay. So even let's look at the masjid, you know, all of them masjid had carpets. You know, in those days, that was considered being ostentatious. You know, the masjids were very rudimentary. You know, they were made of dirt floor, over which you will pray, you spread a mat, you know, a straw mat, most likely, or you have a kumsa, a small mat just to cover your face and your two hands, called it the 5, you know? And it's a small mat. You don't cover all your foot and everything. You know, you just cover the way your face is resting. You know, and so much so that you will see in the fiqh books that out of some of the conditions of salat, that you mustn't pray on materials that are not natural. And that's why up to today the Shias pray on a piece of earth, which is natural. So although their whole body is not praying on the earth, but their face, they pray on this stone. I mean a clay, a circle of clay. Okay, and of course they took some of this clay from the burial site of the imams, so they say. Allah knows best. And they make these clay, you know, tablets, and you bow on that. But you see, you know, also all the other fiqh that, you know, you pray on materials that not ostentatious, to be natural as possible. Because in those days, the rich people, the kings, had carpet like what we have today. But today, that's a normal thing. That's not nothing special now. Okay, so you see how the culture has changed. Because you see these things in Islam, the masjids, normally, even in the times when they got wealthy, they might have paved it, with tiles. Okay, and they'll put on mats, most likely straw mats. And we see how that has changed. Okay, we have seen how that has changed. So therefore, you have to take off your shoes. Because we can have different people carrying different dirt and impure stuff into the masjid. Okay? Of course, they used to pray barefooted. And they will take off their slippers and put it in front of them and stand on the mat or on the earth. That's why you can see, a brother told me some scholars they met in Arabia, some teachers, when they came to the masjid, just walking with their shoes because they say, Italian prophet says, well, you have to take off your shoes. It's when you start to pray, you take off your shoes and you put it at the side. Because they're walking over earth, So we have all these things that people do. So it is important that we get this thing right. Okay, it's very, very important, that we get these things right. For example, if you adopted a person, they don't have to take your name. And in fact, in Islam, you don't have to take the name of your husband. Okay, there's no law in Sharia that you have to take the name of your husband. Also, there's no law against it. So you find some communities, people have the women have the name of their husbands. But it's not something that is prescribed that you have to do. But for children to show who their fathers are, it is necessary that because Allah says that, call them by the names of their fathers. Okay, so it have no discrepancies. So all of these things, okay, all of these things are customs. Some customs are bad, some customs are good. And as I said, the key to understanding this whole thing, this whole process, is your custom and your culture must not go against the Sharia. So we have a problem now in these days with a lot of people wanting to know their culture, to know their background, to know their tribe, to know their nationality. And it has come to such an extent that some people sacrifice the deen, okay? Sacrifice the deen of Islam, okay, to follow their forefathers. And that is a problem because they don't understand culture. And even they pick and choose, okay? Because in some African culture, there are things that they do that some of these people who quote unquote like to be the strong Africanists, right? Following everything from Africa, they don't do it. So they make a judgment on certain things according to their own understanding, according to their own moral nature or moral code. But in Islam, we have a code. And the code is one who does not go against the Quran and the Sunnah. So even they who claim they're strong on culture, they don't do everything that the foreparents did. Because they realize that sometimes the foreparents was not always right. So when they meet those areas, what they do is they say, well, now we can go follow that. But us now, we don't just do it out of a whim. Now we don't like it or we like it. We put it under the test of whether it is good for us according to the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah, or is it bad for us? And a lot of people have gone astray going astray badly because of this issue. In order to the sense of recapturing our culture, because our culture was taken away from us, when we came here as Africans, and to get back it, we want to take everything. You can't take everything. You have to monitor it. You have to put it under some kind of test. And I have known people who leave Islam because of that. No, and it is so sad. Okay, so this is where I would like to stop today and go too far because we have a lot to discuss, inshallah. Okay, so subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Any questions? Any questions? We're taking questions now.
Assalamu alaikum. So anyone who has a question, you can raise your hand via the reaction. You can click the reaction tab and you can raise your hand. Or if you are not sure, I can. Okay, we have Brother Muhammad. He has a question.
Sure, go on.
I'm going to unmute your mic at this time, brother.
Okay, Brother Muhammad, go on. Is he there?
Yeah, he's here.
Wa alaikum salam rahmatullah.
Right. So let's say the American culture, right? Which is rested on the founding fathers, rooted in slavery and oppression, and built on the backs of white supremacy as a doctrine, and then it manifested itself into the Monroe Doctrine and the Big Stick policy, right? When a Muslim now, when an American becomes a Muslim, how does he meander this new reality of Islam that is diametrically opposed to Americanism and white colonialism and white colonial adventurism?
Oh, the first thing first. Even though it is an imposed culture from European oppression and servitude of Black people, everything in their culture is not wrong. Okay. What was wrong is they're trying to impose their way of life on us. That was wrong. And justifying that by Bible and by their racial distinction. Okay, so he has to apply the same thing, for example, the people who
how much of it?
No, hold on, I'll come in there. The people who live in America, for example, when they marry, when they finish marriage, that's something called jumping the broom. Okay, that is something they make up in their own among the slaves. Right? They eat certain meals at certain times when they have success or when they have harvest, So those things is not part of the what is required in Islam, for example. What is required in Islam for a marriage is acceptance, right? I mean, offer and acceptance. You offer to marry, the girl accepts, when the girl family accepts on her behalf, payment of the dowry, that's it. And the two witness, sorry, right? All the other things is that just your own expression. For example, in Africa, other than the dowry, they give you clothes and utensils for your house, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that. You were saying something?
Yeah, but I was talking about the whole idea of American exceptionalism, which is really an expression of white Christian European dominance.
But this is what I say. This is what I
right.
say. No, but this is what I say. I understand exactly what you're saying. But what I'm saying is that that thing as an oppressive thing will not be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And by you, the slave did resist.
An exceptionalism. So how?
Yeah.
So when a white American becomes a Muslim, he has to make
deal with that.
a 180-degree turn then.
He has to deal with that because white supremacy or even black supremacy is not acceptable in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So but no supremacy other than the supremacy of taqwa. Right? So mm-hmm. if a black American is infected by that, there's a sickness that he has to get rid of. Right? And then we have a sickness that we have to get rid of, where we become racist in reverse. You know, talk about black superiority and as if the melanin make us supermen. You know, so each people have to address themselves, because what you're talking about is not culture, you're talking about ideology.
Basically, yeah.
So that's a different topic, right? But culturally, the slave ate like the master, dressed like the master, you know, but they did it, they tweak it to their own convenience, where they develop their own culture.
Right, but what I'm saying too, if this culture of inferiority or superiority isn't totally abandoned, when the new Muslim steps into the corridor of Islam and comes into Islam, he will either be coming as a, to be new neo-colonized. You want to be an Arab, or you want to be a...
This is what I said. He has to deal with that. They have to deal with that, because there are Arabs who feel they're superior than all the other Muslims in the world.
Right.
And we know that Islam opposes that.
Right. So I'm saying, so every single group will have a particular Islamic teaching to cure them of their sickness. Well, everybody just has to take a general.
No, there is a general purge. I said, like, you missed the whole lecture. The whole lecture was about applying, that just by the question, you missed the whole lecture. Because the thing is that you apply Islamic principles to these things. And if they do fit, okay, you leave it off. Or other than that, your Islam will be weak and tainted. You could be a Muslim, but your Islam is tainted. Right? Like, for example, when we first became Muslims, they use the word convert. I don't ever use that word. But they use, nothing wrong with the word, but the way they use it in a kind of prejudicial way.
Yeah.
He's a convert.
Put down.
You know, pejorative way, he's a convert. I rather use the word new Muslims. Right? Those people are new Muslims. Because if you trace back the ancestry of the Indians, it goes right back to Hinduism. They were Hindus and they became Muslims. So they are about a third or fourth generation Muslims. Okay? So they are converts too, if you want to go that way. But they will look at somebody born in Islam from parents. So he's a convert. Right? So, all these different things I'm saying, you have to apply your Islamic thinking, whether it's Arabism or Europeanism or Africanism, you must apply Islamic principles to it. This does not, however, negate you being proud of being an African, a Asian, an Indian, a European. You drink tea as a British man and biscuits in the afternoon. Nothing wrong with that, right? But if you say that there's a sign of your superiority over the rest of the people, then that is where the problem comes, right? And you have to each community have to address those issues. Okay, and of course, yes, there's a general thing because the Quran, you see, Islam comes for everybody.
Right.
If Islam comes for everybody, right, then I can adapt. Then I cannot impose my aspect on an Eskimo,
True.
right? Or I can impose my aspect on a tribe in the Amazon desert, or a man living in Europe. Just like the same way, he can impose that on me. But when we come together, we have an Islamic culture in the sense that Assalamu alaikum, everybody understand that, right? Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin, everybody can follow the prayer. Okay, so we are neutral in terms of the Quran and the Sunnah. Are we practicing it? But the other wider parts of our life, we are allowed to freedom to be that,
Right.
okay, without feeling that inferior.
For the African experience, how do we understand mimicking of a people and authentic cultural experiences? Because in some aspect, all right, some of the things we may do is really
a lot of what we do is mimicking. I'm sure right now you're mimicking. Your clothes you have on is that not your quote unquote original clothes. That is European clothes.
Right.
The language me and you speaking in is an imposed language. So that what I'm saying is not everything bad. Okay, it's not everything bad, right? So there's a sense. Listen, people will always have exchange of culture. Okay, for example, the Rasul and them never wore pants, right? The first pants he got was from Ethiopia. The first pants he got was from Ethiopia, right?
Okay.
The striped garments, those striped garments some brothers in, okay? He got that from, he got one of the, a gift from Syria, right? They just used to wear a wrap cloth around their waist and a short jalab-like thing, short top kameez, right? But he sampled different things, right? So that's why I say, although you right now speaking to me, I'm speaking to you about a jersey, which is an American invention, right? Or European invention, right? But nothing is wrong with it. I can sample it, right? Without notions of superiority.
Right.
Okay.
But I was more, I was now more speaking on an ideological kind of line.
Yeah, but this is not this is we deliver culture. So this is not an ideological thing, you know. Deliver culture, we have a level of ideology in it, because if you're saying that ideologically I'm saying my culture is better than you and you give me reasons, then it then becomes an ideology, right? But what I'm saying that whether it's ideology, hold on, whether it's ideology, whether it's following, you have to make sure you don't violate the Islamic principles. Once you don't violate the Islamic principles, for example, in Afghanistan, they have a system called the Panchayat, where all the elders and certain people get together and they sit down and make a decision. Right? Europe might have come into a collective decision by voting. Right? You know, and so all of those things are valid. Talking ideology, now all those things are valid.
Right.
So this is what I'm saying. Once you don't violate the Islamic principle, that is your test.
All right. So let me look at something like Columbus Day. Right? We understand who Columbus was. And the Amerindian, well, say like in Moruga, the Amerindian people, they celebrate Columbus Day. It's a big thing for them. How would a Muslim now, with understanding of who he was, understanding of faith, this is a Christian man, imperialism and all these things? Or would he deal with a situation like Columbus?
No, well, yeah, the first year they recognized Columbus did come, and that was the beginning of the oppression of the original people of these islands, right? But to celebrate that as something good, not. Come on, you know that I had a. You asking me. You asked me that. You asked me things that you know. But whether or not it's their culture, right? I don't want to tell you again.
All right, Michelle.
No, I don't want to tell you again because I'm trying to tell you something. Whether this is a culture or not, you have to apply the Islamic principles to your culture. So you can't say, well, this is the culture, right? Okay. Drunkenness is our culture too. So because of our culture, you do apply the Islamic principle that you shouldn't be drinking and undressing yourself in public, right now. So the same thing will apply to Columbus Day. Is a day that even celebrating oppression, but that don't mean we don't learn about it in school or in our history. That this is the time when our people went into the demise under colonialism, right? Colonialism. So as a Muslim, you will not. I can see a Muslim celebrating a Columbus.
No.
You know, whether it's the culture now, because you keep telling me, well, that's their culture. Well, this is what I'm saying. Because it's their culture and it has something negative in it, that's why you're applying the Islamic principles.
No.
That's why I said I don't know what to say again, because I'm telling you that if there's any issue, because if it was in lecture, I was saying that in the issue of politics, economics, right? You know, we trade in. People are accustomed buying and selling, doing different things, right? Then now, look at this, look at the oppression now. You pay $5, okay, for something, and then the government imposes a VAT on you. That's oppressive tax. That's not Islamic, it's oppression. But so far we can't do nothing about it. But let me say we can do something about it. We'll move that. Okay? And other things, normally, we don't charge interest and all these different things in our transactions. Okay? We don't promise somebody something that's not there. Okay? And so we apply certain Islamic principles to economics. So this is what I'm saying. The general principles is whatever aspect of life, you have to use the Islamic principle and apply it. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Not just culture, everything. And that's what I said in the lecture. Be it politics, economics, everything. You know, because they, for example, their society is based on evolution. They have a concept of evolution. Right? So it means that if me and you evolving, somebody has to be on the top and somebody has to be on the bottom, because we evolving, we didn't evolve at the same rate. And that's where they get the notions of superiority, because they evolve and handle violence more, and they conquer the whole world. They consider that as being evolved. They consider that as civilization. You know, civilization is not. There is a technique. You know, they have a new technique of they rob you with a gun, they rob you with a knife, or a bow and arrow, still a robbery. Robbery is haram. Whatever is the technological development of getting it, whether it's a space radar gun. Okay, so this is what I'm saying is a different value system as a Muslim you are supposed to have. This is what I'm saying.
Right.
And of course, a lot of people, when you talk about it, a lot of white people struggle with that, a lot. A lot of white Muslims, they struggle with that.
Well, is a constant conflict between understanding their deen and understanding the foundation of what the society rests upon. Yes,
it's a constant, and it's something that they have to do with. Just like some of us have a constant conflict with Carnival. You know, some of us have a constant conflict with Carnival. You know, so different people have different things that they have to deal with. But the answer is there. It's up to you to implement it or not. You know, and you will fail if you don't implement. Allah say, "What you believe, enter Islam kafa, totally." Okay, which means Islamize. You know, apply Islam to your whole life. You know, but that is something they have to deal with because, especially as they are the dominant culture right now. Yeah, that's
So,
their test.
that dominant culture is an expression of Christianity within the culture, or is an expression of capitalism in the
It's a Jewish Christian, Judeo-Christian base. Okay, the whole judicial system, the whole culture is Judeo-Christian base, right? And now they have a mixture of atheism, okay, and secularism. Okay, so it's a jumble. Okay?
Right. So
as Muslims, not only we have to contend with it because we live under it too. But then this is not a talk about ideology.
all right, sorry.
Culture.
No.
It's a different talk.
Yeah, this one.
You know, how we negotiate. That's what we call you know, living as a non-Muslim under non-Muslim rule. There's a whole fiqh issue. A whole different. That have its own fiqh. How you behave, how you interact in the society. You know, if the society allows you certain things, freedom of prayer.
Because I was really thinking on the thought that some Muslims in the East believe that Western culture in its entirety is anti-Islamic and
yeah,
that, yeah, but I don't want to call it, you know.
Why you want to call him? That is Boko Haram, and while they're saying all these things, they have the highest, that the best technological guns that the market could buy. Yeah,
right.
There's a contradiction. They're not, and they have the best telephone, computer, boots,
and they get the best support from the French and the
everything.
The best support from the French and the
so what I'm saying, and that's why I said it's not everything in somebody's cult in the West is bad, and that is a mistake the Muslims made, and that lead to their being dominated. You know, it's not everything in the East good, and not everything in the West bad. You have to take everything on its merit. You have to. That was say you apply this. I don't understand that you apply the Islamic principles to everything.
To the society, yeah.
Everything, and that's your answer to everything. So you wouldn't get leave behind. You see, because at one time we learn, the Muslims are talking about learned medicine from the Greeks. They were like the Americans today, you know, and the Muslims master. In fact, all the Greek knowledge was passed down in Arabic. You see, and then the Muslim develop on that knowledge. Then the Muslim golden age, you know, to study, to be a modern quote unquote person in that time, you had to travel to the Muslim world. You go and learn in Spain, or you go and learn in Baghdad or in Damascus. You know, and when they went and learned in Spain, they come back and they formed Oxford University, Cambridge, you know, and then they took it to America. So their function, the whole concept of a university comes from the Islamic word Jama. Right? Jama means like you collect everything, universal. Collect all the knowledge and bring it in one place. Okay? Hospitals came from Islam. All these things, eye surgery, you got a whole lot of things. And then we really wake up one morning and say, all of that is haram now because somebody else doing it. It's nonsense. And we don't even recognize our own thing. Even ostracized, people been ostracizing, putting people in quarantine. That's an Islamic principle of dealing with diseases. Professor Islam said that when a disease spread and you're in there, don't move, stay right there. But when you move, you just kite all about the place. Right? So, and the Muslims, doctors, and people in medicines apply that principle and then they develop. Now they call it a big word for it now, quarantine. So these things that we don't recognize what we give the world, you know, the computer system, the binary, we developed the zero from the Hindus, right? Even the numbers on the clock are Arabic numbers. Number 1, 2, those are Arabic numbers. The Arabic numbers you see in the Quran, the square and thing, those are Indian numbers. The Arabic numbers is what you see on the clock, number 1, number 2, number 3. Those are Arabic numbers.
Okay.
It's called Western Arabic numbers. Spain.
Right.
Right? And by those numbers, just try to form a computer using Roman numerals. LX1 VQ, So these things, what it's just a backward, they just went backwards, and that is normal. Society grows and falls.
True.
But as new Muslims, we should not come and take on the nonsense and song more backward than we're supposed to. Right? And you can only do that with knowledge and applying the Islamic principles. And to apply something, you have to know it. Right? If the bottle tell you, take 2 tablets every 5 hours, don't go and take 3 because you want it done faster. 3 every 1 hour or something. No. It's a prescription. Apply the prescription, you're going to get cured. Misapply it, you'll have problems. And we see the problems of the Arab world. They eat up everything or they ain't none. They have no medium, no balance.
No, what's that?
Yeah, any other questions?
For those who are joining in and would like to ask the Maulana a question, there is something called reactions. It's a heart, you can press that and you have the option to raise your hand, inshallah. Seems like you have, there isn't any more questions, Maulana.
Okay, so I just want to remind you all that we'll have a part 2 where we go even deeper and more examples. I'll give more examples so that you can get clarity on what is being said. Because if you don't have the examples, you might not be able to connect what I'm saying to real life. And I want you to connect what I'm saying to real life, right? For example, the way we talk, right? And we have this gesturing, right? In some culture, that they consider that offensive. No, we just talk and we have your hand, moving like that. In some culture, they think you want to fight. Serious. So it's a nice topic. And it's just a nice topic, especially for us as Muslims. Because what has happened in the Islamic world is that we have had so much negative influences. In an effort to restore the deen, people went overboard. That's why the Professor Islam said that the young men of the Arabs, they will destroy Islam, from the sense that he said that they recite the Quran and they don't pass their shoulder bones. Beautiful recitation, beautiful, all the proper tajweed and makhraj, everything. But they don't catch it. They don't say reach their heart. Okay, so we have to be concerned about that. We got to be concerned with content and quality, and not just look alike. And I want to stress against the stress in this topic. You must seek knowledge. a certain amount of knowledge is necessary. I'm not saying everybody will be scholars, but you owe yourself to have clarity. Okay? You owe yourself, that you're clear on certain basic fundamental things, especially when they become a problem in our society. Okay? And you condemn a Muslim, some people will consider you a kafir if you beat a drum or play a steel pan. Okay, and those are not issues that could take you out of Islam. Playing a pan or playing Beethoven will not take you out of Islam. There are certain things that will take you out of Islam. Even if you do something wrong that is not acceptable in Islam, will not take you outside of Islam. Maybe a sin that will make tawbah or something like that, You stay away or something like that. But what takes you out of Islam is there are issues that are clear. Okay? And you cannot pronounce takfir on people. Normally, it is a court, a properly constituted Islamic court that will determine if this person is a kafir or not. Okay, by going into what he said, collecting all materials, and then a panel will make a judgment. Not one person, you vex that man is a kafir. Because if it's not true, you becomes a kafir. That part is true. If it's not true, you becomes a kafir. So I'll be very careful. So if there's no more questions, I'll leave it up to the Brother Shahid to have another time that I can come and do part 2, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam. Believing brothers and sisters, we will be making the announcement soon, inshallah. Next week, Sunday, around Asr time, we have Sister Masuda Muhammad. She would be joining us via Zoom. And the 25th, inshallah, we have an in-person lecture. Maulana Ibrahim Drayton Looney, he would be at the Jamaat al-Muslimin. And this lecture is geared towards the youth. So I am asking those of you who are parents, send your children to the masjid. They would be well taken care of. I would be there, inshallah. Send them because we want to tap in to our young brothers and our young sisters. We want to, some people might have a weird feeling that these things are only towards adults. These lectures are geared towards adults only. No. We have to cultivate the young minds, especially the minds living in Trinidad and Tobago. We know the type of society that we live in right now, so it is, how can I put it? It's strongly advised that we condition our young flowers to come, inshallah. So until next week, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to keep us safe and upon the haq. And I'll see you all next week, Sunday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.